Hey there, friends. Dr. Botelho here with the Diabetes Free Life community, and welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. And today's message I think might change the way that you're thinking about cravings and what you're going through as a diabetic. And I think it's probably going to change things moving forward for you, because if you've ever said something like, I'm just addicted to sugar, or I just have no willpower, then today's session is really just for you in particular. You kind of been, unfortunately, not been told the truth over the years. As you being a diabetic, you kind of been told things like, well, it's just all about discipline, and that, well, you know what you need to do? You just need to keep trying harder. But what if it's not your willpower that's the problem? What if that's not broken? What if it's actually your biology that's broken? So let me tell you about a patient of ours. Let's call her Melissa. And Melissa came to us after trying every diet underneath the sun. I mean, I'm talking about things like keto, fasting, vegan, no sugar challenges, you name it, she tried it, and she even tried hypnosis. But here's the thing, every afternoon around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the same thing would happen almost every single day, especially when she was at work. Her energy would just totally crash. And what did she do? She'd reach for a cookie, she'd reach for Diet Coke, and then what would happen? The guilt would start setting in right after she'd do that, right? So what did she think? What did Melissa think was happening? She thought she was just addicted to sugar. So she thought she was weak. But when we ran lab testing on her and we looked under the hood, we saw something completely different. We saw that she had blood sugar variability. We saw how that her blood sugars were on a roller coaster. It was just up and down, up and down. We also found out that she had a dysbiosis. She had an infection inside of her gut. The gut bacteria was actually imbalanced. That she had strains inside of her gut that were literally feeding off of sugar. And most surprisingly to her, but we started talking about it, was she had some past trauma. She had some past trauma with some things that happened in her life. She went through divorce, and she kind of created this emotional eating loop that happened when anytime that she go under stress, and those little gut bugs just love that sugar. She wasn't sugar addicted. It was actually a biological survival strategy that was happening inside of her body, and her body had adapted to it. So what I want you to know here today is that there's always 3 hidden biological triggers that you need to be aware of that always drive up sugar cravings, even when you think you're doing everything right. And the first one is blood sugar crashes. When you have blood sugar glucose spikes, these are for people who are wearing a continuous glucose monitor. You can see these really easily. If you're using a glucometer or using a finger prick and you're checking it multiple times a day, you know that your blood sugars are going up and down. That's what I'm talking about here, these blood sugar crashes. It could be things from things as simple as processed carbohydrates, caffeine, even stress. Well, what end up happening is your insulin is going to overreact, and it's going to cause these steep crashes. That crash is not just a feeling of being tired. It sends a signal. It sends a signal to your brain, and it tells your brain you need to find sugar right now. It's survival. It's not sabotage. So here's a takeaway that I want you to take from that. Focus in on making sure that when you do eat your food, you focus in on making sure that your blood sugar is balanced at every single meal. And so here's just some simple tips that you can try. So here's one for you. Always make sure that you pair your carbohydrates with a good healthy choice for protein or fat, and then add some fiber in there. You can also add things like a handful of almonds even before you eat your carbohydrates in your meal. Like this literal small little hack that I just shared with you right now could make a big difference in your blood sugar spikes. Number 2, your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria might be hijacking your cravings, and you don't even realize it because your microbiome, like things like Candida or these sugar-loving strains that we just talked about with Melissa, they can release these chemicals, these chemical messengers to your brain, and they make you crave sugar. They want to be fed. And you think that you're addicted, but in actuality, what it is there's these little microscopic organisms that are just screaming for fuel. So what's the takeaway to get from that? Fix your gut. You don't fix your gut, you're not fixing your blood sugar. So that's one of the ways that you can help with these cravings. So here's a really simple tip. You can do things like make sure that you have fermented foods, eat fermented foods. You could possibly be looking into prebiotics or taking targeted probiotics. And then all of a sudden you can start shifting the balance inside your gut microbiome back in your favor. But here's the thing. And we got to be aware of prebiotics and probiotics. You got to make sure that you're working with someone who knows how to test your gut biome and how to make sure that they're testing it appropriately. Otherwise, what might happen is you're going to feed these little bugs and you're going to be feeding them incorrectly, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting rid of the bad ones and keeping the good ones. Third that you want to be aware of is just remember this. You're not weak. You know, your body was wired, you were wired to actually survive. And when cravings strike, I want you to hear this. It's not a moral failure. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're weak. It's because your body is sounding this alarm signal, and no one's helped you trace where the alarm is coming back from, where it's coming from, the root of the problem. You know, inside of our practice, if you've been part of this community for any length of period of time, you know I talk about this often. We use something called the root and fruit model. Most people are trying to fix the fruit. You know, the fruit is the symptoms, things like the cravings, the weight gain, the fatigue, the insulin crashes, but if you've never fixed the root, you know, your biology is always going to be behind, and it's never going to work out in your favor, and you'll always end up in the same cycle over and over again. For many of our patients, the fruit is a sugar craving, but you got to address the root. Where is it coming from in the first place? That could be something like a hidden infection. That was the case here with Melissa. It could be things like low cortisol levels. Maybe it's poor mitochondrial energy. Maybe it's unstable glucose signaling from your liver. Maybe you have a liver issue. Maybe it's a fatty liver pattern. So instead of just stop eating sugar, we got to start asking, is your body trying to tell you something? And what roots actually need to go about being healed? And you got to figure out the roots of the problem. So if you're not, then what winds up happening is you're knuckling it, like you're white knuckling. You're like, oh, it's just willpower, it's willpower, it's willpower. I'm just going to keep pushing through. Because guess what? For many of you, you don't need more discipline. What you need is really a new strategy. You need to figure out why that's happening in the first place. And again, if you've been part of this group for any amount of period of time, you know that that's what we teach here in this group. And we're going to be talking a lot about that in the upcoming Diabetes-Free Masterclass. And we're going to do a deep dive into things like this, how to actually finally stabilize your blood sugar levels. We're going to talk about the things like the 6 most common hidden gut imbalances that happen with diabetics, how things like food sensitivities, foods that you might be eating right now that you might think are healthy for you, that are actually driving up your blood sugars. We're going to talk about cortisol levels. We're going to talk about hormone imbalances. We're going to talk about how blood sugar forms these cravings, a craving triangle. And that triangle is between food sensitivities, cortisol levels, and blood sugars, and how to actually go about breaking it. This is where the real transformation happens, not more diet dogma, just follow this diet or follow that diet. Listen, if there was a diet that would make diabetes go away, we wouldn't have diabetes anymore, right? You know, the next session is going to kick off starting soon here. So make sure you look for the links. It's going to be here in the comment section. But make sure you get registered. We're going to be going live soon. You know, we're already seeing hundreds of new members in the group, and we love seeing the new members are joining this mission, right? So let me finish off by asking you something. What if your body isn't broken? You know, what if your cravings are just a message and not a mistake for you? You know, you were never designed to actually fail. You were designed to heal. You need the right roadmap, right? So what I want you to do is this. I want you to, if this was helpful, I want you to give me a comment. Let me know that you watched this evening, and let me know that you watched it by following up with that comment, which is the emoji, you know, that big strong muscle emoji that lets me know that you watched it. Because if you're ready to break that sugar cycle and you want to break it for good, without more shame, without more blame, without all the failed diets that are out there, you know, if this message hit home for you, tag someone who's stuck in the same boat or the same loop that you might be, and let them know help is definitely on the way. And we'll see you in the masterclass. I'll see you soon.